Hey guys, welcome to the new episode of the Mayank Show podcast. And in this podcast, we're going to talk to George. He's a young tech entrepreneur. So George is a co-founder of Docspace, his company's name, and he is currently based in Florida, USA. He started his journey way back when he was just 17. He did his first job for free for next 1 year, like in order to learn things, because back then he had no CS degree and all those CS background things. So he made sure that the very first job he's going to do is only for the learning part, right? So these are kind of things which we're going to discuss in this podcast: how to start off your first job without any CS background, and how to make sure that the next step that you're going to take to start your business is pretty much okay, and from where you can start your company. Is it like very tough to start off your company if you are doing a full-time job or maybe anything else? What kind of steps you can take to start your own company, how to run a company, and many other things related to that. We also talked about social media, how social media impacts a business, and how business has a perspective towards all the social media platforms. So we had this amazing conversation, and I hope you guys would really love it, and this podcast is going to add a lot of value to your life. So guys, without any further ado, let's roll the intro. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Thanks for having me.
So guys, for those who don't know Josh, he's basically an entrepreneur who started his journey way back when he was just 17 years old, right, Josh?
Yep.
So Josh, it would be great that if you could just introduce yourself and tell us more about what you do and from where you started doing what you are currently doing.
All right. So we must have at least 2 hours because it's going to be a while. Just kidding. Just kidding. I'll give you the brief version. I was always an entrepreneur. I got started in technology around 17. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 11 years old, was when I started my first business. And when I was 17, I got introduced to the world of technology and then went on the idea of I would love to start my own technology company. Mm-hmm. It was that idea that got me into programming. And so I wanted to learn how to program because I wanted to build a technology business. And that sent me down a road of anybody that's in technology realizes, especially programming, I realized how much I had to learn. So it wasn't just something I could pick up in, a few months and start. So then I started working at a couple different startups, trained under some really awesome people there for software development as well as entrepreneurship. And then about 5 years ago, I left those tech startups to start my own business full time. And it started off as a software development agency where we were building software and products for other people. And then about 2 years ago, we shut down the agency because a product we had been building was starting to take off. And so we decided to focus the entire team on that product and build that full time. So the business is currently a product software company, specifically a SaaS business, which is software as a service. And that's what I do full time. And I help lead the engineering side of things. I write code every day, write new features, deploy to production, do all that good stuff. So
Josh, it has been like a great journey. Like you just mentioned about all those things that you have done so far, right? So I just wanted to ask you that when you started off your journey, like way back when you were just 17, did you face any difficulties to get a first job? Like, I think you haven't done any kind of degree in CS, right?
No, I'm no degree. But yeah, absolutely. When you don't have any experience and you don't have degree, you have a barrier that's pretty large to jump over. That's actually I would recommend to people getting into software development for the first time, especially if you're self-taught. Join an early stage startup. Now, I joined a startup and I worked there for free for a year, because I had no credibility for a year for free. And that was because it was a startup and I just knew I needed experience. So for me, I was because I didn't go the degree route, I needed experience under my belt in order to be a credible developer. So I said, if I'll work for you for free for a year, if you'll just hire me. And they did. And so it was a game development company, and I primarily focused on the back end stuff. And
Okay.
so I focused on the back end API, and I built that, yeah, for free for a year. And then
So
it was that year.
when you got hired in the, sorry for interrupting you in between, I'll be
No,
doing
go.
that in the
Yep.
complete podcast, right? So that's my job, right?
Yeah.
So when got the first opportunity in a startup, that you just said that you asked them to give you a job, in return they don't need to give you any kind of money, right? So
Yep.
at that point of time, did you had any skill under your belt, or were you complete fresher in terms of computer engineering, or whatever you can call it, software engineering or stuff like that?
I had been building things on the side, like just through, I started doing tutorials, obviously, like everybody, basic to-do lists, hello world type stuff. But then I actually started building a social media
Uh huh.
product on the
Uh
side
huh.
just by myself, but it wasn't for anybody. It was just a project I had started. So no real professional experience under my belt at that time, just really side projects that I was doing on
Mm-hmm.
my own.
Mm-hmm. So how did that help you? Like, you started off your very first job. So what kind of responsibilities did you get for the very first time? Did you get the complete role of handling the back end part, or were you just supporting a particular feature in that particular project that you were working on?
Yeah, it was actually the entire backend API for this game. So they hired
Okay.
me. They didn't know I didn't have any experience, by the
Okay.
way. So it
Okay.
wasn't like that was the conversation. I
Uh-huh.
just knew that I had to get in the door. So I was like, just in case there's a barrier, I'll work for free because I didn't want them to be able to say no. And who's going to turn down a free software developer?
Right.
So I said, "Oh yeah, I know Node.js, and Mongo, and all this backend stuff." And they're like, "Oh great, you can build our API." It was like a really early stage game company. They hadn't ever
Okay.
built. They were working on their very first game. So
How
they
many
were
members were there in that company?
at the time I joined. I think there were 7 people.
Okay.
Yeah, so they were
So you were one
funded. They
of
didn't
those
have any
core
revenue.
members, right?
Yeah, I was the very beginning before they had anything really off the ground. The game wasn't even launched yet.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a bunch of guys sitting around a table in a little office, all with
Okay.
computers. And so yeah, they brought me in and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna build our API." I didn't know what an API
Right.
was.
Okay.
In all my development, like reading and stuff, I just hadn't come across that. And so I was like, "Oh yeah, great. Okay, I can do that." And funny side story, a guy that was a mentor to them, one of their early investors, he was
Uh-huh.
actually part of the original team that built Siri for the iPhone.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
and
something. Yeah, cool. Yeah.
yeah, and so he came in and they're like, "Hey, this is the guy that's going to build our API." And I knew he was. I was like, "Please don't ask me any questions about APIs because I have no idea what an API even is right now." And he's like, "Oh,
Okay.
okay, great, good." It didn't ask me anything. I was like, "Oh, thank God." And he just kind of went about his way. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, if anybody was going to know that I was not qualified, it would have been this guy." But he actually
Right.
ended up, cool story, becoming a mentor of mine, realized I didn't know much and actually invested very heavily in teaching me how to be a developer. Ended up being an
Mm-hmm.
awesome dude. I'm forever grateful for him. But yeah, in those early days, I was so nervous. I had to go home and Google, like, what the heck is an API and how do you build one? You know what I mean? That night. So it was a fun adventure. Definitely not qualified. I was very underqualified.
So would you say that confidence matters at that point of time when you start your very first job? Because most of the thing, I don't think many people know all those things that are assigned to you for the very first time. So do you think confidence plays a part in that process?
Oh, absolutely. So there's that like whole idea of imposter syndrome. If you
Mm-hmm.
just embrace, I really did embrace the idea, even though I was nervous and didn't want to be asked like a question. I actually learned through that company that if you embrace the fact of like, get confidence, sell yourself when you're in there, develop
Right.
good relationships with senior level developers, and
Mm-hmm.
just use your confidence to get direction from them to be like, "Hey, how would you go about doing this?" And when they tell you, use your self confidence to Google it, watch tutorials, read books, do whatever
Right.
you can on your own to make it happen. But even if you don't know exactly what to do, there are more senior level people you could reach out to get the direction, but then use everything you have to figure it out and actually
Right.
decode essentially what they told you. So that's what
Right.
I did. And I actually embraced the idea of being like a noob and not knowing anything, but being very
Mm-hmm.
aggressive at learning as fast as I could to get these things done when I got the direction I needed.
Okay.
So
So were
confidence for
you
sure.
right, right. Completely agree. Like, were you always in that zone? Like, I need to start my own startup from the very beginning, or did you come across with this your own idea after some point of time in your career that you realize that yeah, I can do my stuff as well after observing all those things that you were doing at that point of time?
I always wanted to start. So for me, I needed to learn how to code. Like when I first started, it was always to build my own business. That's why
Right.
I never worked at a big company. I got many job
Mhm.
opportunities to go work for big companies, but while I was in my journey, I always worked for startups because I not only wanted to learn how to code, I wanted to learn how to actually build a startup and a business. So it was always with the goal to start my own idea, but
Right.
I needed the education and the experience to avoid a lot of these early mistakes. I didn't
Hmm.
discover an idea that I wanted to build myself until later, even after I had my own business,
Right.
because I had lots of ideas, but none that I was super confident that I could actually get paid for. So I
Hmm.
just started saying, hey, I'm a software developer. I can build a business by you hiring me to build your idea and paying me for that
Okay.
until I have an idea myself, which we ended up getting that people would pay
Right.
me for.
Right. So, what is
Yeah.
that idea, and how did you put that first step towards it?
So the idea is actually a mobile forms product. So we help companies digitize paper-based workflows
Hmm.
primarily for teams. So like if you're a service team and you do work out on the field, repairmen, inspection people, anybody that has teams of like an office and people out on the field going to
Okay.
locations, they use our app to
Right.
collect the information and data and requirements that they need out in the field. And
Okay.
so, but we came across that idea. I can go deeper into that, but that's the highest level. A mobile forms tool that allows people to collect data out in the field.
Okay. Okay.
And we have iOS, Android. And the idea actually came from the agency. So
Hmm.
anybody that wants to start a business and you don't necessarily have an idea, an agency is actually a really great place to start because
Right.
somebody came to us. It was an inspection company that was using Evernote. I don't know if you know what Evernote is, but Evernote's like a note taking app. And they were like,
Okay.
it's not used for what they were doing before, but they needed a tool to collect information when they're out on the field. And so they came to us and said, hey, we have a budget of about $25,000 and we
Hmm.
want to build this product.
Hmm.
And so in that, I'm sitting there thinking, this is a pretty common problem. And we want to go ahead and build this idea. We had other products. We were always experimenting that never ended up taking off. We lost a lot of money. We can talk about that stuff too. But this
Right.
idea that we're working on now actually came from a customer of our software development agency. And we said,
Uh-huh.
we'll build it for you for free, but we're going
Hmm.
to own the product and you can rent it from us essentially by paying us monthly for it. And then we can go sell it to all other types of companies too. That's how it
Right.
came about. Yeah, we didn't think of
Okay.
it.
But the question still remains the same, Josh. Like I asked you, like, how did you decide that I need to put my first step towards the idea now? Because you were doing a full-time job before that, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So the full
So
time
every
job,
full-time job employee is like he's always in this tussle that should I quit now and start off my idea, working on my idea, or should I give some more time to, save some money and then invest that money in my idea and quit my job?
I see, I see. So we're kind of in a different spot, which is I started off with not as a passionate idea. It was with a software development company. So I was just providing a service that and I wasn't necessarily passionate about.
Okay.
I wanted to build my own idea, but what happens and maybe I'll give you this context is that when you want to be an entrepreneur, you just have to have confidence in your ability to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, if you're going, say, if you're starting an agency, it's hard for people to make that jump because they're not confident that I'll have another job after this
Right.
client that I have, right? So, like a lot of times people have full time jobs and they'll take on projects on the side to make extra money, but
Right.
they never make the jump out of the full time job because they're not sure that there's going to be another job or another
Right.
client there waiting for them. So, but business comes down to the whole reality of sales and marketing. I really am a true believer that that is the backbone of business. You can have an amazing idea, you could be an amazing developer, but if you can't sell or market yourself, then you don't have the ability to build a business. But for me, I knew that I could go out and find another customer because I also, or at least I like to think of myself as a charismatic person that connects with people, can explain why somebody needs to work with me over somebody else. That's the sales side of it. And to this day, that's something that has helped me even in a product company, even though I'm not building software custom projects for people, but it's the ability to sell. And so that's the biggest jump. It's not that I was so passionate that I was like, this is my moment. It was that like, I just had a project going and I was like, okay, I can go and find another customer to make another project.
So can I
and I'll
say
be
that,
self-employed.
can I say that you were in a state like, I need to start from anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Eventually you will reach that point that you would say that right now I'm working on the idea that I was believing in from the very beginning.
Yep.
So basically you can start off from anywhere in your career in terms of business, be it an agency or any other idea.
Yep.
It doesn't matter, right?
Absolutely. It really doesn't matter because like I was saying before, I was always trying to start my own thing, and I knew that I needed freedom and I needed money to do that. And so for me, even though I wasn't so passionate about an agency, I knew that if I could keep landing clients, they would pay me well and I would be in control of my time, and I would have my own business. Even though it wasn't my dream business, it would give me the flexibility and the finances to build what I ultimately would want to do in the future once I found it. So yeah, there's no magic moment. It's not like, you know, if you hear Facebook, it's like, oh, I was at 1 million users and 500,000 in revenue. It's like, and then I was like, yeah, it's time to make the jump. No, for me, it was like, I'm young. I have nothing to lose. This is what I want to do with my life. And so as long as I can make money, you can't just not make money, but as long as you're confident that you can make money, then why not? That's really
I think
what I had to ask
it's more to
myself.
do with your mindset as well. Like you just said that I was young, I had nothing to lose at that point of time. And we at an age of in between, suppose 20 to 25, we think that if we take that risk, what will happen?
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
we can think in this way as well. Like we have nothing to lose. We can try anything we want, right?
You can. And even at that time, when I quit my full-time job and was launching my business, I was actually even getting married right then. Now, my wife's amazing and she's a hustler in her own right, but it wasn't the most ideal time. I mean, I was changing where I was living. I was getting married and I was starting the business for the first time. So it was a stressful moment, but it still, it wasn't a perfect time. I just had to do it.
So, George, when you came across your actual idea that you are working on currently, right? So, did you do some research? Like, did you take some survey from the public, or figure out that is the idea really worthy enough to invest in your time, or did you start off the idea and then after your implementation you realize that yes, after the analytics you got that yes, is it working or not?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because as I mentioned earlier, we had products. We had the agency, but we were always building products. Well, we had built a product previously that we lost somewhere between 80 to 100,000 US dollars on it, and we shut it down. And so we then continued to do the agency, and then we got this idea that we're building the product now.
Right.
When we got that idea, we learned the painful lesson of never assume that an idea is just a good idea. So when this person came to us with this idea and we said, oh man, we think we can sell that to a bunch of other businesses, we didn't write a line of code until we talked to like 1,000 businesses. Literally, I'm not even exaggerating. 1,000. We had a full-time person calling and interviewing businesses day in and day out about this idea before we built it to ensure that there was an opportunity, because we weren't going to make the same mistake twice. So I recommend that for anybody that is about to start a business. Do the research ahead of time. Don't just get excited about an idea because it's too much time and too much money to waste. Definitely do your market research. So no, we talked to 1,000 businesses at least in the industry that we were going to build the product for before we wrote a line of code.
Right. So what was that hard experience that made you, learn all those things? I would really love to know that.
So this was a product that we were building for essentially accounting departments of auto groups, so like auto
Okay.
dealerships. So
Okay.
that sell cars.
Mm-hmm.
My dad came from this industry. We landed one customer that was paying us $25,000 a year for this one customer. So that's actually what taught us that we're like, oh, maybe this is a good idea. Okay, but it was only one company that paid us, even
Okay.
though they were paying us a
Okay.
lot. So we decided, we actually ended up building, they were also an agency customer of us that came to us through our dad. We built a product for them. Then we built an entire replica product of the
Okay.
same thing we built for them. And that's where all that money and time went into. But we built it so that a bunch of auto groups and dealerships could come and use the product, right? So we built it in
Right.
a different way, like common SaaS tools. And then we literally hired a full-time salesperson to literally sell it into dealerships. So about 7 months
Okay.
into that process, after we built it and launched the product and hired the salesperson, about 7 months later, we had invested time. We weren't able to land even one more customer. Wasn't able to land a single other dealership. And we sold hard, man. We built new features. We did everything. And we really did give it our all.
How
Like
much
I,
time did you invested in it? Like,
it was for development time alone. The product was like probably somewhere between 300 to 500 hours. And then 7 months of a full-time person. And we were paying that
oh,
person over 4,000 US dollars a month.
oh my God.
So yeah, and so then they were selling full time. And so it was, and it wasn't even the sales fault. It wasn't any of that. It was just the product we built was a process that was unique to this, our first customer. But because we didn't know enough about that industry as a whole, we didn't
Right.
realize that and that nobody else would want this product. We just assumed they would without talking to anybody else, spent all this time, all this money. And then it was the 7 months of this trying to sell it that we learned what we had built was not correct. It wasn't the
Mhm.
correct product. It didn't have the right functionality, and selling into this industry was going to be more expensive and time consuming than we could afford. And so we just cut our losses and killed the product entirely.
You told me about the full-time employee you had for 7 months, around 7 months, right? And you
Hmm.
paid four K dollars
Yeah.
per month
Yeah.
to him or her, whatever whoever that person was. So did you manage to pay that person from your personal funds, or did you pay that employee using some money that was invested by some third party?
So it was the agency. So we
Okay.
had the agency running full time. At that point,
Mm-hmm.
we were building the dealership product at the same time as we were building the agency. And we never built like a multi-million-dollar agency, but we were usually doing around 30,000 US dollars a month.
Okay.
And so we use the funds from the agency to keep our business running, as well as invest in products like what we were doing with this person and the salesperson. So we were funding it out of our other business.
Okay. Okay. So how would you, conclude it? Like, should someone invest his personal funds in the very beginning, or should someone go out for, just pitch their idea to some investors and get that money from them from the very beginning and use that money to raise their product up in the market or things like that?
So yeah, that's a loaded question. There's a lot of dynamics of why you would want to raise or not raise. I think if
Right.
you're a software developer, then you have a
Let's
good
make it particular to only software development or say tech startups only.
Yeah, and so okay, so what I would say is if you're like me, if you take it from my perspective, I had the ability to actually build the product myself.
Uh-huh.
And so I would spend as much of your own resources to validate the idea,
Mm-hmm.
meaning build it, potentially get your first customers on it before you ever consider raising money, if you can. Even if
Right.
you're not a developer yourself, if you can validate your own idea by just using your own funds to start, that's great. Then do that. And that's just, again, if you're in a fortunate position. Some people have families, they don't have extra money. So that's why I'm saying that's a loaded question, because it's different for everybody. But if you're in our
Right.
scenario, you should really try and do as much as you can with your own resources and money before you try and raise money, because raising money is very expensive. When there's all the risk and you're early, there's a lot of risk. So if somebody's going to invest in your product, they have to take a lot of your company to absorb the risk. So if you can de-risk it as much as you can by solving those things, building the product yourself, getting early customers, then your company becomes more legit as you go throughout that whole process and farther down the road.
Right, right. And what is your take on these two concepts of, learning from mistakes and then doing things, and doing many things at a time and learning yourself by doing mistakes? So what do you believe in, like learning from others' mistake, or doing things yourself randomly and learning from them? Or
Both.
is it like you believe in
Yeah.
both? Okay.
Oh, both for sure. I think you'd be an idiot not to learn from other people's mistakes and just be like, no, I got to figure it out. But even like our first company, we did everything we honestly, like, I would say there wasn't anything we intentionally set out to do wrong. We really tried to do everything right. I read all the tech and venture capital and startup stuff you could imagine. And so, but there are just some things that somebody cannot tell you in a 1,000-word blog post. There are just things when you're building a business day in and day out that you will fail and learn from, that will ingrain that lesson into your brain that you just couldn't get from somebody else. So learn from others when you can, and just embrace the fact that no matter how much you read or you try and learn from others, you will face your own failures and have to learn from them as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what do you believe in? Like, all these questions have been like, believing is the most common thing in all these questions, but this is important for me as well. Right? I am not a business. I don't run a business. I'm a full-time employee in a company. But when I think of doing a business, I have this question like, should I start it by myself, or should I start it with someone, like with my friend or some family member? And, should I have a team from the very beginning? Because there is a void. I feel some void when I start off with something. Like, I should have some member who can support me in doing all those things. Like, he can manage the other stuff, I can manage the other stuff, and then we can collaboratively take the things forward. So what do you think? This solo approach is better, or is having a team from the very beginning is far better than that? And if having a team from the beginning is better, then how can we find that one member which can support us in our idea, and who can, resonate with our idea as well?
Yeah. Wow. It all depends on the team. So the number of people is not the determining factor of whether it's a good decision or not. It's the people that you are doing it with. So I don't care if you have 5 people that say, hey, I'll come and I'll work for you. If they're not the right 5, you're better off doing it alone. So, but if you can find, and I know this is a vague answer, but if you can find the right people or other person that you believe you want to go into battle with, because it's 10 years. Like, if you're going to start something, think about 10 years. I'm going to be building a business with this person for 10 years. Then it's not a bad idea to bring other people on to help offload it, but they have to be the right people, because and so for instance, for me, I started the business with my brothers. So I have 3 brothers and we're all partners in the business.
Okay.
The only reason I started it with them, because they are all aggressive, talented, and really hard workers. But that's not true for every family. A lot of times you got maybe one person in the family that's a really hard, maybe the other one's more casual, likes to have more fun, is not super into like big dreams, building businesses. So you wouldn't want to partner with a family member.
Like, but it completely depends.
It so completely depends on the person and who you decide to partner with, because it could be family, it could not be family. Or it could be yourself. It just depends. Are they the right person that you want to go on this journey with for 10 years? Because it's going to be long. There's not going to be a lot of money, and it's going to be a lot of work. So one other point I would put is, don't just join somebody because they have the skill set you need. So for instance, you're a developer, Mayank. if you want to say, like, oh, I need a sales guy, you meet somebody that's good at sales, you're like, oh, that's my co-founder. No, 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 no,
No.
no. You have to literally love that person and think they are
Right.
an awesome individual, have a good character. You enjoy working with them. You guys are better off. I would recommend this if you're picking a co-founder. Before
Mm-hmm.
going on a journey together,
Mm-hmm.
work on a project together.
Right.
Before you give equity and say, hey, you're 50% owner, you're 50% over, just work
Right.
together on something for real, whether it's for a customer that you're both going to make money from,
Right.
or it's just a side project that you think is exciting. Just work on it for the fun of it, to see what it's like to work with this person and how they work with you. That is so, I cannot stress this enough, so important,
I feel
because
you,
the
bro.
journey is long. Yeah. Hopefully I
Yeah.
emphasize that enough for the audience.
Yeah, like I was about to ask you, like, how could you recognize that? How could you just, get to know that if that person is suitable or not? And you just rightly hit that point, like you need to have some project beforehand,
Yeah.
starting your venture or whatever it is, so that you can get to know that person very well. That if am I going to start this, say, 10-year long journey with this person or not?
Yeah.
You can make
Because
that
what
decision based on, yeah. Yeah,
because
please
what
go ahead.
happens a lot of times, you meet people and they're like, yeah, I'm a hard worker, I'm really good at sales, and they talk a lot, and maybe they even convey the message really well, and you're like, great. But
Right.
talking is different than doing. And so that's why I started
Exactly.
it with my brothers, because I had a lifetime, my entire life, I saw who they are really.
Yeah, you
And
have
so
been
if
watching
they
them, right?
I've been watching them. So if they came to
Yeah.
me and they're like, I'm a really hard worker and good at my job, and I would be like, no, for the last 26 years, I've seen that you're lazy. That's not true.
Yeah.
So, but you don't get that a lot of times. So I would definitely say, don't believe the talk at face value. Really see who that person is and what they're really like, and be patient to bring them into your company. Don't just, because they seem like a cool person, join them.
Right.
Don't. You're making a big mistake if you do that.
Because you just rightly mentioned before as well, like this is kind of long-term decision that you're going to make. You cannot make
Yes.
it impulsively, like you have just seen that this person is very passionate and he's saying that I will do this and that. And
Yep.
based on that, you just say, yes, you're going to be
Right.
my co-founder. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
happens a lot. You'd be surprised. And you hear a lot of bad stories about how it went wrong. And
Have you
you
have
hear
you been
sometimes,
have you been through that experience as well?
I have never had a bad co-founder, but I did partner. So one project our first project we did as an agency,
Okay.
we decided this person didn't have a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
and they just said we would give us equity.
Okay.
Well, instead of a pay, never do that, by the way. Ever,
Okay.
ever, ever do that. Not if you're an agency. Anyways, we did it. We didn't know what we were doing. And
Okay.
we essentially they screwed us out of between the realm of 10,000 and 30,000 US dollars. It just depends. And never gave us equity. And we built an entire app for them, because when we started going down the process, we realized that this
Mm-hmm.
person that we were about to become partners with, right?
Right.
A business partner, when you get equity, you're partners with this person.
Right.
You realize that, oh my gosh, who in the world is this person? And they had no idea what they were doing in business. So much so that when things turned around, they freaked out on us. We were just building the app. Freaked out on us, and literally like screwed us out of the company, screwed us out of the
Right.
equity, never gave us anything. So, but you know what's the crazy thing? Even though we spent all that time and money and built their app, when we
Uh-huh.
realized what type of person they were, we were like, we
Uh-huh.
don't want it. Take it. We want to wash our
Right.
hands of you, because we will count the loss, because being in business with you would cost us more in the long
More
run
loss. Right.
than just what we lost now. So we're done. So that's just a good example. Like, even if you're not doing money for projects, that's the way it is in your personal life. It will cost you time. It will cost you money. It will cost you energy and your own
Right.
business if they're not the right person. So it's the same thing. It was just a little bit of a different relationship, but
I've
yeah.
been through that similar kind of experience that you just shared. Like,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can resonate to that. Yeah.
That's one of those ones. Learn from our lessons.
Yeah.
Don't learn this lesson on your own. Just take
I
some
had this.
advice.
I had this same situation of getting the equity of which was less than 10%, and he
Yeah.
was just saying that we will pay you after we get the profit and all those things. Right now, all you have is this much only, and
Yeah.
we were working on that project for last 1.5 year when I was in my college.
Yep.
So yeah,
Well, you know what? If it's a different situation when you're a developer. So like if you're just somebody that needs experience, like for me, I was willing to work for free. So if
right,
that company was like, "Hey, we'll give you 5% equity," sure, whatever. I don't have anything to lose. So I'm free. I'm learning from you. So there's a situation. If you're doing it for the experience and the learning, and
right,
they want to give you equity, then fine. But if you're doing it instead of getting money, if you're like, "Hey,
right.
normally I would make like 10 grand, 20 grand on this,"
Mm-hmm.
then and they're like, no, don't do that, and I'll go ahead and give you 5-10% equity. For some reason, people in their heads think equity is like this super valuable thing because they hear about like Facebook and and the guy that got early equity in Facebook is now a billionaire. That
Right,
just doesn't happen. Like that's so rare that
right.
doesn't happen. So what I always would say to somebody is, why do you believe in this person's idea better than your own? So, like, if
Mm-hmm.
they're going to give you 10% equity and you're not going to get paid, aren't you
Mm-hmm.
just better off building your own idea and keeping
Right.
100% of it than only getting 10% of this person and spending all this time and money and they're the one that controls the company? Why do you believe in them so much more than your own idea that you would exchange equity instead of money? Just build your own idea. You have just as much chance of succeeding.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? So yeah,
I got your point.
yeah,
Yeah. So, George, from where this thing called Future Internet Billionaire came from? Like, I have watched Brandy Morgan's video, who is fortunately your wife,
yeah,
and in one of her videos, I have watched you wearing this hoodie, and it was written "Future Internet Billionaire" on that hoodie, right?
yep,
And recently, you have started this channel, this YouTube channel called Future Internet Billionaire. So I wanted to just know that from where did this word came from, and how did you come up with this word? Is there
yeah,
something? Yeah.
yeah. So for me, I'm a guy with big dreams. So for me, I
Right.
want to build a $1 billion software company. And so for me, that phrase is just literally a goal for my life. And so
Yeah.
when we came across the idea of this, what is a future internet billionaire?
Yeah.
It's the idea is future, right? Like you have internet billionaires, but a lot of times there's so much success and they're worth so much money. It's hard to connect with somebody like that. But I'm like,
Right.
well, I want to be a billionaire, but I'm a future internet billionaire. So it's more
Future.
about the journey, everything I'm learning, things that I'm reading, things that I'm paying attention to on this journey to get to a $1 billion company. That's really what
Mm-hmm.
this channel is about, what the whole motto is about. It's the journey to that stage, not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
I'm a billionaire, look at me. It's here's
Right.
everything I'm failing at, everything I'm learning, everything that's really cool that's happening or not cool that's happening on the journey to that
Mm-hmm.
billionaire status.
So since we are talking about social media and we are like talking about YouTube now, so what do you think is the future of social media in terms of advertisement that we get on the all those videos? Like you own a company, right? You are a
Yep.
co-founder of your company called Docspace, if I named it correctly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you tried advertising anything related to your company through social media platforms?
Yeah, we do actually. We don't do advertising on Facebook, but we do primarily on Google and Facebook for now. But
Okay.
one thing we try and do differently, so this is kind of going into the world of building a startup, is a lot of people are competing
Mm-hmm.
for that space, right? So what's happening is prices are
Right.
being driven up just to get access to a person.
Right.
So what you have to do in the early stages of a company, because we don't have millions of dollars in advertising budget, you have to find creative back doors. So
Mm-hmm.
places that people are not paying attention to. And so for us,
Like.
that's for instance like Facebook groups. So
Okay.
what a lot of people aren't doing, Facebook is still Facebook, so there's a lot of people there, But what we're
Right.
doing is actually sponsoring and we're paying to become a moderator of Facebook
Mm-hmm.
groups that have people from our industry. Very few people
Okay.
are doing that right now. So it's a way to acquire attention at a very affordable cost. So that's just one example of a backdoor on a popular platforms like social that you have to pay attention to versus just, I'm going to run a Facebook ad. Well, every one of your competitors is also running a Facebook ad to that
Right.
same person. Whereas
Right.
we're sliding into people's DMs and we're creating
Hmm.
funny content. Like we're creating memes specific to our
Hmm.
industry. We're
Hmm.
creating GIFs. We're creating resources and we're sending them directly in these groups, which is a more like intimate, personal experience because we look
Right.
like a peer in the industry versus, oh, this is just another person advertising to me like everybody
Right.
else. You know what I mean? So we
So,
try
so
and
what?
connect
Like
on
you
that.
have already, drawn us to that one question that I was asking you in between. So it was like, what do you think is the future of advertisement on social media? Like currently, you see these advertisement, all these creators get these sponsors and they promote their product or something like that. So what do you think, is that going to work 5 years down the line as well, or is there anything that is going to change in terms of all these advertisement type of things? Because I
Oh,
see this is kind of a cliche thing now, because people get to know when you promote something, they get to know that you have got paid for this and you are definitely going to say good things, all good things about it.
yep.
So it's kind of have become a cycle. Like every company is going to come up with these videos or going to sponsor some creator to get their product out there in the market. So what do you
Yeah.
think, yeah, is going to change in terms of marketing their product through these advertisement on social media?
I'll be honest. I have no idea exactly. I think what you said is so true though, is that remember influencer marketing used to be really really effective, but its
Right.
effectiveness decreases just like email marketing used to be really effective. Cold calling used to be really
Many people
effective.
still believes in email marketing.
Yeah,
Like,
we still use it too, but what
yeah.
happens is that it becomes less effective as time goes on and more people start to do it because what happens when you get people send you emails? 99.9% of the time you don't even open it, right?
Yes.
You literally just delete
Right.
it. So what
I don't
happens
even
is
delete it.
yeah, you put it into spam or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Right.
so like that's going to happen with every single channel. So that's what I said about like the way it's going to change is that a new modes are going to come out. I have no idea what it is. It's in every single industry, whether it's social media, it's content. Everybody was creating video. Video is a big time thing now. Well, what do you do
Right.
when every business on the planet is creating video? How do you stand out? Well, there's going to be
Right.
something else. It's going to be direct texting. There's going to be something. I don't really know exactly. All I do is spend time trying to figure out little back doors that aren't mainstream yet and
Right.
see where I can acquire attention that isn't big time. So for me, it's about looking for what isn't big yet, what isn't the next big thing yet, and just trying to
Right.
see. It may never be big, but to me, I'm fine if it gives me only 100 customers out of it. I don't care if it's 100 people, 100 customers that I get out of this channel. It was worth it to me. So
Right.
I know that probably doesn't answer to you, but 100% but I don't know. I'm not a marketing expert. If I'm honest, I'm more of a product
Yeah,
developer guy. But
I just wanted to get the idea from a founder's perspective. Like, what does he think about his product, and what does he think about marketing his product on social media? Yeah,
yeah,
so I wanted, yeah, your answer on that base, and you just gave it.
yeah. Find
Yeah,
backdoors. Don't just you advertise if you have to, but it's not as effective, and it's
I
going to
have a
become
take
less
on
effective.
that. I have a take
Yeah,
on this in the current scenario which is going on. Like maybe the companies will be having more effective YouTube channels or say Instagram pages on which they will be showcasing their products in more realistic sense rather than just having a script and
yep,
reading down all those scripts, because people are believing more in realistic things now,
yeah,
though they don't fall for all those fancy lines that makes them believe in that product earlier before, right?
yeah. I agree absolutely because, like you said, when people know you got paid to say something, they don't necessarily believe it. That's why I think the
Right.
most important thing is like you have to get in front of people. So like The ways you do that, there's only 1,000 of them. But what the most important thing as a product is that when somebody comes to the product, it actually delivers on that value. That they use it and they're like, oh, this is actually a good product. It actually solves my problem. So that even if somebody says it and they don't 100% believe it, they experience it for themselves and believe it, right? That it's not just somebody else. I think that's what the most important thing is. There's always going to be the drive for attention on how do I just tell somebody so somebody learns about my product. That's going to be blown up and changed 100 different ways in the next 10 years. But if you consistently deliver the value so that anybody that does find you loves you, then that's the way to win in the long run.
And what do you think about the surge of a product engagement, or say the reputation? Suppose when LinkedIn came in the picture, it was not that popular in the very beginning, but some people are always pushing it through social media platforms. Like, for example, Gary Vee. He talks a lot about, being on LinkedIn and playing the game right there, because it is going to be the next Facebook, as he says.
Yeah.
So do you think people overhype these things, or these things are actually that good that people do this hype thing on social media? Or is it like intentional to, take the market up for that particular company?
It's hard. It's
he talks about LinkedIn, he talks about TikTok, he talks about now he talks about Clubhouse.
Yeah, right. I was just about to say.
He says it is going to be the next, that popular app.
It could, honestly, it could be. At this moment in our time with the internet, anything could become the next big thing. I mean, literally, it could be like a stupid texting thing that becomes the next big thing. You know what I mean? Like, who would know? I think it's about, for you as a founder of a company, seeing where opportunity to connect with your customers are in a creative way. So if Clubhouse is new and you have the huge established customers, figure out, is your audience spending time, the people you're selling to, the people you're trying to connect with, are they on Clubhouse? If they are, go to Clubhouse. You know what I mean? Like, spend time on Clubhouse and figure out where to be creative. I think it's about figuring out, understanding who your audience is and trying to connect with them where they're at, and doing it in the right way. So I think a lot of times people get overwhelmed by trying to connect with customers because I got to be on TikTok, I got to be on Clubhouse, I got to be on LinkedIn, I got to be on YouTube, I got to be on Facebook, I got to be on Snapchat, I got to be on Twitter, I got to be on Pinterest, I got to be on everything, and I got a podcast, you know what I mean? You're like, just
got your point.
Yeah, just do what you can well.
Right.
And I think it's better to start off with one or two platforms where you have the most opportunity to connect with your audience and invest there, versus trying to do everything and you just do a crappy job across everything. You know what I mean? Whereas, and going really deep, because LinkedIn, you could go to 1 million followers on LinkedIn, right? It's that big. You could go to 1 million followers on Snapchat, 1 million followers on Twitter. Each of these platforms are big enough where you could acquire huge audiences. It just depends on where you're going to invest. And that's the way I look at it, at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why are you not there on these social media platforms, or why are you not that active on these social media platforms? Is there any specific reason that George is not there?
Yeah, I didn't think that myself, I was in a place to add much value to people. Okay. So I'm building the business full time right now. I just started Future Internet Billionaire because honestly, it's not a lot of effort. Fortunately, my wife, she has a team. It's just hired also a full-time video editor. I just record it and she handles the SEOing and everything. So I was like, okay, that's something I could do. And with my personal profiles, I found that it was, instead of me trying to grow a brand, which is ideally what I would love to think I was doing, but I was just consuming, I was just scrolling. And so I wasn't adding any value, and social media doesn't add any value to you. It doesn't. Not at all.
Exactly.
Unless you're using it for business purposes and things like that to actually grow a brand and an audience. If you're just scrolling,
unless you are using
comments,
it for learning something, or basically to consume some valuable content and then using it for some good, right?
Yeah, that's true. If you can find it, you just have to be very careful about who you follow. And
Right.
so, like, you know what I mean? Because, you know, what happens a lot of times is people spend, you know, follow hundreds and hundreds of people. And so the valuable content that you would actually be learning from, you maybe will see like one thing out of the hour, you know what I mean? You're spending reading garbage.
Maybe you are following Kim Jong Un.
Right.
Right. So that
Exactly.
depends. Right.
Exactly. And pretty much on the internet, everybody is like him, right? Everybody is a
Right.
narcissist on the internet and a troll. And so that's why I had to remove myself. It's just because I didn't feel like it was adding any value to my life. And I hate to
Okay.
say it, I wasn't adding any value to anybody else's life either. I was literally just losing time on this thing. So I just had
Right.
to look at it and say, because I'm not using it for anything productive, it's not worth me being there. So I essentially just removed all the apps from my phone, and I get a lot of time back. Instead of scrolling Instagram now, I read. So I read books, I read articles, and I've read more books because I got rid of social media than I ever have before. So yeah, it really does work.
Since you're talking about books, so what two books would you recommend for anyone who is, in that beginning of his business journey and should definitely give it a read?
Wow, two books. That's hard to pick. My one go-to book that I read almost every single year is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Okay.
So that is a book on general how to deal with, interact with other human beings. Really
Okay.
good, really easy read. Oh man, number two. Oh geez, oh wheeze.
You will have to be biased on that.
Oh, well, you know what? Are you trying to say business books? Because I would say the Bible, but the Bible, you'd be surprised. So here's the thing that most people don't understand about the Bible,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
is that there are books in the Bible that are not just purely like religious instruction. It
Mm-hmm.
actually, like the book of Proverbs and the book of Psalms, and even First Chronicles, Second Chronicles, has the stories of kings, like kings of Israel. And Proverbs is specifically, essentially, like the Proverbs, the lessons from King Solomon, who is known as one of the wisest people to ever live. And
Okay.
there is so much wisdom on business, how to deal with people, how to make good decisions. I'm not just even talking about like how religious side, literally just everyday life, how to deal with people, transactions, how to make decisions about your business, people you're working with in the Bible. That I don't think most people are aware of that, but that book is loaded with valuable
Okay.
life lessons. So I would recommend that even for business. Well, you know what? You know what's crazy about it is it's available for a download literally for free on every phone. So you can
Okay.
download it. And I would say anybody that's interested in that, read Proverbs. Proverbs is one of the books in the Bible, and it's
Okay.
loaded with just valuable life lessons
So
for
Bible is
business.
like a collection of many books.
Yeah. So the Bible is not just one long book. It literally has 66 books within it. And there are some of them are only a
Okay.
few pages long, but
Okay.
I can even tell you more about it later. But yeah, it's broken into like different sections, but a lot of it is lessons about kings. I mean, crazy, like most people don't know this, but like it's also filled with like crazy situations where they faced armies, vast
Okay.
armies that like
Okay.
outnumbered them by like 1,000 to 1, and they used certain strategies and tactics to overcome their opponents. Most people again don't know that this stuff is in the Bible because they just think it's like
Okay.
instructions on religion, but it actually has some crazy stories that are really interesting.
I can
So I rec
completely resonate to that because we have had this amazing history as well, in which, from which we can take many things which we can use in today's life. And also, if you talk about this Hindu religion, we have Mahabharat, which is also this kind of religious book, where you would find many lessons that you can implement in your life for real.
yeah,
So yeah, I can resonate to what you are saying about Bible.
it's awesome. Like, we always look to people in our path, in our future, like the Jeff Bezos, the Steve Jobs, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Elon Musk as leaders,
Right.
but we don't look back at, sometimes people in our history that have ruled. So like I mentioned King Solomon.
Right.
Solomon in their kingdom made
Hmm.
silver. as common as stone. So if you think about the wealth of that country, the wealth of his nation under his rule, that silver was considered worthless because it was as common as stone. That's how much wealth and abundance that he was able to bring to their nation. And so if you think about that, you're like, wow, if you look at his wealth, it would be in the personal wealth of like the size of all of Amazon, like in the trillions and trillions of dollars just in what he owned in gold alone. So we don't look at that because a lot of times you're like, oh, that was like thousands of years ago. But still, when there's documented records on the lives they lived and the lessons and things they used to acquire that type of wealth, you need to pay attention to it. Right. Because it's compared to our billionaires today. The billionaires today are tiny compared to the wealth that existed for some of these individuals in the past. Right. So I like learning from people in history too.
We have this golden temple here in India, in Punjab state, and its dome is completely made up of gold, and many other structures are there which are completely made up of gold. So yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah. So Josh, what message do you have, or what kind of advice do you have for the 17 or 18 years old version of Josh, if you give it now?
Oh, wow. Oh, man. Work hard. Learn as much as you can. Fortunately, I did a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And, but I would just say time goes by faster than you could ever imagine. I'm even still young. I'm only 26, but I feel like from the moment I was 17 to 26, I blinked my eye. So learn as much as you can, work hard, because, a lot of times like people want to chill and just have fun and are opposed to work. Not necessarily us or maybe the people that listen to your podcast, but in general. But what you don't realize is time moves so quick, and you don't remember the moment you didn't go and hang out with your friend. You remember and feel where you're at today and the progress you've made towards your goals. So if you can just realize, hey, invest in yourself, learn, improve, and grow, and read, and work hard towards your goals. Take a lot of risk. You're young. You have nothing to lose. You don't have a family. You have no responsibility. But to yourself or God is really the only thing. And you just literally do whatever you can to accomplish what you want in your life, because now is the moment. And that's, fortunately, I like to think that I did that, but I would just tell myself, double down on it and do it even more than you did. And this isn't about never having fun either. Take time. Don't burn out. Don't stress yourself out and work 20 hours a day, every day, all week. But
because there is this myth about the hustle culture, and some people makes it very, kind of unrealistic, because they always talk about doing work and not talking about maintaining the balance, the work-life balance as well. So
I think maintain the balance, but in the early days of your life, I would say let the balance be a little bit off.
Okay.
Allow yourself enough time so you don't burn out and crash. But I would definitely say invest heavier early in your life, because when you're young, I think about this a lot, and this, feel free to cut me off, but I think about this a lot. When I'm older, you have no idea what life will bring you.
Right.
For me, I use my hands. I'm like, you have no idea if you could get into an accident or something and you lose use of one of your arms or hands or something, like, or you're not able to do it. You know what I mean? Like, you just have no idea what life will bring to you. So
but all you have is the present.
All you have is the present. So invest today, because you're not sure what will come tomorrow. Whereas take advantage of where you're at today heavily, especially while you're young and you don't have a family. You got nothing to lose. You're never going to look back and be like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have worked as much. No, when you're older and you have a family, you're going to be like, I wish I was more successful. I wish I had more so I could take care of my family better and maybe relax more now instead of later. So keep the balance, don't burn out. But I would say invest heavier when you're younger, so you don't have to as aggressively.
I'm like completely amazed to hear these experiences. Like, now you're telling me about how to invest in your career from the very beginning, and and because we are not certain about our life, what is going to happen next. I'm not sure if you have watched that podcast with Evers Mears that I did. in which the guy is in his 40s. Okay. So he's very certain about all the things he's doing and all the things he has done so far. And he says that 5 years down the line, maybe I'm doing something else. He lives like he's going to be, you know, he's going to live for next 50 years. So he thinks like that. I'm just trying to, just put this forward that he thinks as if he has 40 more years to do whatever he want to do. He's putting his complete 100% efforts in whatever he's doing currently, but he's more chill about, not going into that hustle. Still, he does a lot. Still, he's modest about not doing hustle. So it's really amazing to see these things.
Literally, there's like, so back to the wisdom of Solomon. He specifically mentions that we are here today and gone tomorrow. We are but like a breath. And so that's kind of, it seems like sad. You're like, wow, that kind of is depressing a little bit, right? But you know what it is? He's not saying it to be depressing, but he's trying to just give you a reminder that time is short. Even if you live 80 years, what happens when you get to 80 is that you look back on your life and you think you went by like that, right? So even if you get to live a full, long life, time still feels like it goes by really fast. So you just need to always have the awareness in your head that, like, don't let it stress you out or make you anxious or not let you enjoy life, but just realize that you have one opportunity in life to do what you want to do. And so do what you can while you have the time, enjoy time, but also make sure you invest. Yeah, but a lot of people are like, YOLO, drop some acid and go do something crazy. And you're like, you know what? Your life's going to end way shorter than it should have by your YOLO, right? Yeah.
Right.
You're going to cut your years in half. But yeah, I know. Exactly, it is. You only live once. There's an artist called Toby Mac.
Okay.
And he has this line that I even wrote down. I love it. It says, life has no sequel, meaning there's no second movie to your life.
Right.
You really do only have one movie. So make the movie what you want it to be.
So true.
We're getting some deep stuff here, man.
Yeah.
The shortness of life. Yeah.
Yeah, we're coming out of that zone now. So Josh, what message do you have for all the listeners and viewers of this podcast called The Mayank Show?
Yeah, what is your primary audience? Because that will determine what I say. Are they developers?
Yes.
Okay. Developers is build awesome stuff. You have a superpower. I really do believe as developers we have superpowers to build something that doesn't exist in our world. Like, you can literally write code to make something exist that never has existed before. That is a superpower.
Right.
So I would say use your skills to do things that are awesome that most people don't have the capability of doing. I don't care if that's writing a business solution where you provide a solution to businesses. If you just build awesome features and functionality for the company you work for, use your creative power to do awesome things and build a fortune for yourself, build fortunes for other people, and improve the lives. Software is not just about gaining my own wealth. Software is one of the most powerful instruments to improve the lives of people, for real. I mean, granted, like, it's not on the level of like providing food or water to, starving people.
Right.
But in terms of like civilizations and companies and cities, software can change the game on how we interact with each other, how we interact with daily processes. So just understand you have a superpower to create things that don't exist, and don't take that for granted. Create awesome stuff wherever you're at.
Beautifully put in words.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Thank you so much, Josh, for being on the podcast. It was, really at the end, it got like a very deep conversation, but overall it was like an amazing conversation, and just put so much value. Like you just talked about not putting value out of on social media, but in this podcast, I would say you put 100% value out of this podcast, right? So thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for sharing all your experiences with us and with our audience. And I hope we'll be doing more such podcasts in the coming future with you.
Yeah, let's do it. Maybe I'll have a whole new set of lessons in a year from now. right? You learned
Yeah.
a lot in a year, so we could talk about all that stuff,
Yeah.
man. It's been a pleasure. And I appreciate you inviting me to podcast, man. It's been fun
It's
talking.
always a pleasure to have you on the show. So see you the next time. Till then, bye-bye.
Sounds good, dude. See ya.